Good morning, all. This is Trader72. I hope you're all well on this fine Tuesday. Well, morning, nearly afternoon now. It's coming up to about 12:40 London time here locally. I've just had a very chilled out evening and morning. Just come out of the gym with my girlfriend. We had a swim in a steam, and it was what we needed, especially after yesterday's events. So it was pretty quiet this morning, really, on the back end of last night's latest news, and there was some latest news indeed. Took us by surprise a little bit. I did see the prices drop dramatically from about $102 a barrel here on crude oil to suddenly 90, and I kind of swore to myself why I didn't actually short crude oil, because I was about to do that just after the last show last night. Well, I felt that potentially the price of oil may have reached a peak for now, and I couldn't see the war, as I've been saying for quite a while, lasting that much longer in terms of what the Americans have done to the Iranians in terms of the bombing and their capabilities. But it seemed to be correct, so I was a little bit miffed with myself for not going in short, which I don't normally would do, because normally I am more of a stock picker than actually a commodities picker, but sometimes when the opportunity, as I said before, happens, so a few years ago when the pound was very much down on the back end of one of our many prime ministers messing up the economy, it was down on its knees against the American dollar. That was a golden chance. Again, I didn't do it at that time and kicked myself for a while. So anyway, without diverting it off on a tangent here, certainly has done that. So let's have a quick recap this morning on what was discussed last night. So really quickly, as I'm sure most of you have gone through this already, I don't need to kind of reiterate in too much more detail. Oil fell dramatically down to about $90 to $90 a barrel. It's currently at 93. We'll have a quick look like in a minute. The reason being is that, firstly, the situation with Trump mentioning that, first of all, Trump had a Trump-Putin conversation. I don't know how that happened, but out of the blue, discussing the Russian-Ukrainian war, Iran, Middle East, blah, blah, global oil supply. I'm sure Putin probably put his penny's worth into that one. Believes Putin should help take out the Ukraine war, blah, blah, blah. So the one bit that's actually most interesting here is this bit here, which is basically, I think before some kind of interview was done last night with Trump, and Trump basically dropped, very complete and pretty much the end of the war, pretty much. The military campaign is far ahead of schedule, which calmed the markets massively and temporarily lifted oil sanctions as well. Suddenly went from 102, I think it was at the time, to about 90. And I thought was going to potentially move forward. So it looks like they've gone ahead in terms of what their military targets are. He says that the Iranians, in terms of naval and in terms of the naval side and air force side, are not utterly destroyed, but very much damaged, and that their capabilities of coming back are retaliating even are quite slim at this moment. Now, obviously, this is down to you guys to work out, what you think is potentially in the ballpark. It's a very hard one to tell with Trump, especially when he shouts out these things. I think there was got to be an element of obviously him knowing that is the situation. Do we think really that we are ahead? I think, the military might of the US is huge and would have done a lot of damage. But we know that Iran is not like other Middle East countries. They have got fairly strong, nevertheless, army. They've built an army of substance. Whether or not they can send rockets back, I'm not sure. They would have been targeted. There's a new regime, obviously, with the son of the Ayatollah Khomeini coming back into power. So whether or not there's rumours that he's been injured already, and I'm presuming he will be pretty much targeted by the Americans again on that side. So again, it's all ifs and buts really at the moment. It's very hard to, through the fog of war, effectively. Great film, by the way, that Fog of War. I'd advise you to see that at some stage. But yeah, so, very hard to tell. But this is obviously the main takeaway of last night's news, that obviously there was a very much ahead of schedule in terms of where the Americans want to be and where they think the war could come to an end quicker than they say. I don't know what the discussion was with Putin about the oil. I don't know how that works out, whether or not the Russians may help, or with obviously the shortage of obviously of oil. There's still the issue of the Strait of Hormuz, which is still being, obviously affected by the Iranians. So that whether or not that goes through, I mean, obviously that's 20% of oil production goes through the Strait. So obviously that is still an issue. But again, I think it's more about really waiting and seeing and sitting on your hands there at the moment and wait and see what is going to come out of this really at the moment. So just to go back to the main news of today's news, really the main global news, that obviously crude oil has dropped overnight. It's currently at, let's have a quick look now, 90, just above 93. It has bounced 3.5%. That's 295 points. So clearly, it's not over yet. And will this creep back up to 100 or around that mark, or will it fall back towards south of 90? Who is to know? I'm still quite tempted at some stage to look at shorting oil, because I don't think oil prices will stay at that price for much longer. It was lingering around the 70 to 80 mark, and could be a short move there for that. Obviously, do your due diligence and do your own research. I am not advising you to do so. This is just for me and what I feel is the right move at this moment. So I will track this for now. But like I said, I do mostly stocks, so I'm not really a commodities trader, but in that instance, sometimes when an opportunity comes up, perhaps it's worth having a good look. I will do further research, and obviously I think wait it out a little bit before making that move, because obviously it could go right up to $120, $130 a barrel if something spikes, if a major event happens. So that could obviously be an issue there. So yes, so that's the global stabilization at the moment. I think everything stabilized a little bit overnight on the back end of those comments, and we'll see. Obviously, at the moment, from that point of view, the geopolitical situation is ongoing. We have got obviously the inflation numbers coming, I think, tomorrow. That's the big one to look out for. Economists warn that high oil prices could push inflation to 3% in 26. Again, this is all a bit ifs and buts. I just despair with some of the media press sometimes about how they stoke things up as much as they can to get headlines and clickbaits. And I know it's a strong statement, but I do feel sometimes that, we have to look through the fog and through the mist and the noise of it all. So do be careful with what is said out there, and try to pick the best, most accurate, down to earth headlines where it can help, or articles that may help to give you a bit more clarity, I think, at this stage. So basically the CPI news tomorrow, that obviously we'll all be watching that, and I may well have a further chat about that tonight in terms of what is expected. But I feel that it won't be moving that much in terms of numbers tomorrow, but still, it will obviously give us an idea of where inflation is in the US, and also what the Fed interest rate will be potentially moving forward. Theme of the day again, oil price volatility, I think will be the main theme again on the opening today at 2:30 our local time, London time, 9 o'clock in America. Not really much else to kind of look at further. I think let's have a quick look at where the markets are at the moment. It was in the green this morning and everything was popping quite nicely. But it looks like we have gone back into the red slightly, and the markets are pretty flat at the moment. The Nasdaq is flat, US 30 is flat, crude oil is 92, just under 93. Gold currently up slightly. I think probably on the stabilization of what's going on with the Middle East and what Trump said. In terms of my stocks and specifically my portfolio, not much going on there really. Still got obviously Visa, Adobe at the moment, just barely up at the moment. Obviously my position, the biggest position at the moment is Adobe with 7,679 shares, followed by S&P Global on 4,352, and the smallest at the moment, Visa on 3,141. Let's have a quick look. I'm in the green, only barely at the moment, 67 in the green. It was over 100 this morning, and Visa just about swimming above the water in profit. Again, all to do with consumer spending, inflation. Obviously, at the moment as it stands, I can't see anything. Adobe, obviously, his results are coming up, and I will do a little bit of a feature on that tomorrow, I think, because I think, if I'm not wrong, it is the results are coming out on Thursday after the bell. The big one to look out for me on that one. That will be my highlight of the week. So there you go. In terms of all the other stocks I'm tracking, pretty much as is, not much happening. Uber, pretty much the same price as yesterday. So really, all in all, flat, not much happening. And we're going to wait on the opening. I'm going to call it that it will be a fairly flat opening today, I think, until we have further news of any of the conflict in the Middle East or anything else that may happen. I don't think we've got any economical news today. Let's have a quick look at the markets, the calendar. We have got nothing today at all economically, especially from the States, apart from existing homes, their total sales. I don't think that moves the needle that much. So yeah, really, it should be a fairly, well, I say calm, as calm as it can be while we have a conflict in the Middle East. But there we go. So I think that's pretty much me done for now. I hope you enjoy the show. Please subscribe and like. I'm having a few viewers, more and more, a little bit, but I could always do with more people. Please do follow my show, and there will be a obviously secondary evening show tonight about 6 o'clock. I would have thought 6 to 7 o'clock it will probably drop, just with the thoughts of the day so far. Let's hope it's a quiet one or an active up one. An uptick would be lovely, but at the moment it all seems a bit stagnant, so a little bit like inflation. So there we go. So have a good evening, good afternoon. Enjoy the opening. Let's hope for the best, that it will be steady and up. It's over and out from Trader 72. See you tonight.